Before we get into the sheer epicness of the Bloodline story, I want to take the time to acknowledge Afa and Sika, better known as the Wild Samoans, who passed this summer of 2024, for it was their contributions to the professional wrestling industry that said epicness of the Bloodline story would be possible. May both their souls rest in heaven, and may love be with the Anoa'i family. Hey everybody, SonGoshuaku here, being joined by my very special guest, owner of NoDQ.com, Aaron Riff. And we're going to kick things off right away with number 4 from August 2021 to August 2022 of the Bloodline year. So that was year number 2. Man, I'm just going to say right off the bat, there was not a single bad year, I feel, the Bloodline. However, this had to rank just lower just because the other 3 was that much better. But man, let's talk about something. This was the very first year that the Bloodline, pretty much the full year that we got of the Bloodline being in front of an actual audience, because this started during the pandemic era. So I thought it was just fun to just finally get to see how they would react. Just some of the moments, man. Roman Reigns, when he came out there, and he would always pick up his microphone and be like, "Insert name here, acknowledge me," and the fans absolutely loved it. They ate it up. I was always there raising my one for that. It was so cool, and I really loved how Roman Reigns, he said it in a very condescending way, but even though he said it in a condescending way, it was also cool to sing along with it. So it's like he made that connection with the audience, but he's doing it for himself as a heel. I thought that was great. The Usos coming out, what a fun act that was when they would always come in, insert name here, the Bloodline is in your city. Like, these were the reasons why at my job, me and my co-workers and my manager that is a big fan of wrestling, we all always throw up the ones to acknowledge. That is our official way of the last 4 years of saying what's up to each other. We just acknowledge, throwing our hands up, because it's so fun. The merchandise, it really gave me feel. And Aaron, I know, once again, you were probably a teenager around the time I was a kid, but we lived through that NWO era. They were like the cool heels with the merchandise and all that stuff. So it was great. Just a fun time, I think, in terms of acts and everything, the storylines. Roman, of course, continuing over a year as the Universal Champion, and then when we get to the Usos, I believe they had faced off against, was it the New Day during this time period, and they kind of rekindled the feud with the New Day. No, actually, that was I think year 1. This year was where they had faced, I think it was the Street Profits, or it was either the Mysterios, I'm forgetting which one, but they became the longest reigning or the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions, I think, towards the end of this year. So that was pretty fun. Yeah, they did it by beating RK Bro, I believe, the Riddle and Orton, which was fun times there. Just so much fun stuff, I think, from a promo and the segment standpoint. Really good stuff, and I think we definitely had some bangers. The Street Profits versus the Usos. They were putting out some great matches, especially at Money in the Bank, and they had that one match with SummerSlam where Jeff Jarrett was the special guest referee. Even Jeff Jarrett, ain't he great? Getting in on the Bloodline action. That's how you know the Bloodline was hot. Everyone wanted to be a part of this story, right? And then the Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns feud during this year, I thought was absolutely fantastic, because man, it breathed new life into this feud, because for so long it was like you got Brock, who, you know, he kind of had to sit there and look really intimidating, and then you had Roman, who wasn't quite tribal chief yet. He was the big dog, fresh off the Southern Succotash era of Roman. So it was really up to Paul Heyman to keep everything together, and I don't think it made for that much exciting TV. But when we get to this one, when Roman Reigns, it was Brock Lesnar who came back at SummerSlam 2021, and Roman Reigns, he was shocked, Paul Heyman was shocked, and we're looking like, oh snap. I saw so many memes at the time talking about like, oh, it's when the ex-girlfriend comes back and she sees your new girlfriend. Like, Paul's got to make his choice. The way they did Paul Heyman, whose side is he on? That was entertaining stories. I really enjoyed it. You could tell at WrestleMania 38 in the main event, fans were hot. So they really got the Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns feud over. Let's not forget Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, Royal Rumble 2022. I remember, didn't the feud start off like, who's going to be your next opponent? And he goes ahead and knocks on the door like, You know, does the whole Shield
Right.
entrance, din, and stuff like that. Like, man, that was good stuff, and him coming out playing the mind games and everything. And one of the things I want to say about that match at Royal Rumble 2022, to me, that really helped establish the what would become the World Heavyweight Champion getting credibility, because Seth Rollins was that one guy Roman Reigns just could not beat. He got himself disqualified. So putting the title on Seth Rollins, a guy who could be like, yeah, the current champ couldn't beat me, I think really helped establish that championship and all the work that Seth would go on to put into there. So, I mean, I thought that was just fantastic stuff. So the acts and a couple of matches were good. Unfortunately, though, I think the reason why I had to rank this match the lowest, or rank this this whole year the lowest, though, is because I think the matches, for some of the big key matches, they came up short. So let's go through this. Extreme Rules 2021, Roman Reigns versus the Demon Finn Balor. On paper, man, it's simple, right? The Demon's never been defeated. You're trying to establish Roman as a champion because, like I said, this was the first full year, so it made sense to keep that title on Roman Reigns. It made sense to try to build him up because we want to see how does he do in a full year with the audience. So all they had to do was have him beat him, spear, 1, 2, 3. But of course, you know, as per usual, sometimes with the later Vince McMahon era booking, it can't be that simple. And we get the ring apron falling right when the Demon had the match won. He flops face and flops right on his face, and then behind the scenes footage or fan cam footage surfaced that a worker had cut into the ropes, and like, really, just a spear would have done. That's all you had to do. I don't know what was going on with that one. We got the Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar 5 match, and despite a good story, it was short, and it was just Superman punch, spear, F5, Usos interfere, and it was done. I'm like, okay, well, I guess at least Roman won. I would have preferred if he went clean. I thought they would have saved that match. The fall of 2021, oh boy. This is that era, that part of the fall where they had Roman Reigns feuding with Xavier Woods over who would bend the knee. So next week would be, would Xavier bend the knee? The next week, would Roman bend the knee? And I think it was at this point, I may have been on the review, and I think I may have been telling you in virtue at the time, look at how Roman Reigns and Charlotte Flair booked, because you know those are the two people that Vince McMahon wants to push. And however they put these storylines, if they don't have any good ideas for this, then that shows you what state we're in terms of the creative. And that thing they were doing, like, didn't really do it for me. But I did think the way Roman lost the match via disqualification, and they laid out Xavier Woods, and he put the crown on, he took the knee anyway. He took what could have been an embarrassing moment and made it seem so cool, played it off so cool. So I did think that was cool. Unfortunately, I didn't think Big E and Roman Reigns really matched that well on SummerSlam. I mean, at Survivor Series 2021, and I mean, that match right there, that whole pay-per-view, honestly, was not one of my favorite Survivor Series. And then they were going to do Roman and Brock again at day one, but it got canceled because Roman got suspended. Roman had got the COVID, and yeah, he had got COVID, and as a result, that was the end of that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, you know, what are they going to do from here? And they put the title on on Brock Lesnar, and then they go into that WrestleMania 38 match. Before that, though, we did get Roman Reigns defeating Goldberg clean. It was a short match, Goldberg's last match, but right things to do. I say they corrected what they did, because the last time they were in Saudi Arabia, they had Goldberg go over the Fiend. They did it right this time with Roman Reigns. So that's right. We didn't need Goldberg going over Roman Reigns. The WrestleMania 38 match. WrestleMania 38 was fantastic, but then Roman and Brock, I think that was even shorter. It was just suplex. It was German suplex, and then he ended, and it's like, all right, I think we're done, even though I'm loving the matches, right? And then, like I said, yeah, we got the RKO, bro. It's a shame we couldn't get the Randy Orton Roman Reigns match that year, as it would have been perfect to see how Roman had came from the start of his babyface run to the new heel run, but they had to take Orton out. And then, like I said, yeah, you got some good matches with the Street Profits, but I'll say this year ended strong. We got Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar 7, which everybody's like, oh, we're done here. We're done. Most of us like, we're done. But this is when creative took a whole new turn. Triple H took over, and boy, what a spectacle. What a way to end year number 2 with the forklift and putting up the ring, and Roman's like, oh man, the selling. I wish Roman still would have won clean, but man, what a spectacle of a match that was. You knew something was going to be special when Brock threw the microphone and Roman catch it without even looking at it and winked and stuff like that, and they buried everything on Brock Lesnar, making it feel like it was a big monster movie. Like, that was a great way to see this is what's going to be like when Triple H is in charge. So yeah, man, overall, just reliving all that, like, I think it was a fun, like I said, I think it was a fun year from a storyline perspective, from just the whole act that they were doing. But I think the big matches, they failed to match the glory. So that's my thoughts on year 2. Aaron, I'm going to let you take care of it from here. You too ranked number 2 as your lowest one. So give us your memories of year 2 and why you ended up putting this at the lowest one.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the stream today. I'm enjoying hearing your thoughts on this, bringing back some memories. There were a few things I forgot about. It's a pleasure to be on the stream with you, and let's talk about the Bloodline, the 4 years. Let me put this out there right now. There were no bad years of the Bloodline. Even the lowest ranked year was still a great year for the Bloodline. And as you mentioned, this was the first year of the Bloodline with the fans, the first full year. You had a little bit in that first year, but this was the first full year with fans. And you brought up all the Roman Reigns matches. It was a year of dominance for him. It was really setting up Roman Reigns as the tribal chief. He was already backing it up in year 1, but year 2, he picked up some of those big wins over Bill Goldberg and Matt Riddle. He had that win over Riddle. A lot of people he went through in 2021 into 2022. The Brock Lesnar feud was entertaining. I think without Roman Reigns in the Bloodline, AEW might have had a real chance to catch up to WWE in popularity, but the Bloodline was so hot, it kept people watching WWE. The Bloodline was, in my opinion, really carrying the company. SmackDown was the show to watch with the Bloodline, and Bloodline segments were often the highlight of the show. Now, I have a lot of positive things to say about that year, and you mentioned some of the great matches. I would say maybe the biggest negative was maybe towards the end, I felt like it was getting a little bit stale. Like they were out there, they were dominating constantly, going through everybody, and it felt like the same thing after a while. But pretty late into 2022, things started to change, and we'll be talking more about this in a few moments, where things definitely started to get more interesting in the Bloodline storyline. I remember people saying around the middle part of 2022, it's starting to lose steam, like they need to do something with the group, and they definitely did. So I think that's maybe the main reason why I would put this year at the bottom of the 4 years. I think, as you mentioned, we both agreed on it, and I'm sure most of the people watching this would probably agree that was the weakest year of the bunch. It was part of the Vince McMahon era, and I think once Triple H took control, things definitely got more interesting, and they were really focusing on more long-term storytelling. They may have already had an idea of where things were heading. I really do believe that from the moment Roman Reigns became a heel and started the Bloodline, that he was eventually going to be a babyface again. I think that was inevitable, and that was probably always their long-term goal. But yeah, this year there were definitely some slow points, but overall still important for really establishing Roman Reigns as the top guy and continuing that dominant run. And just when you thought like he had reached the absolute peak, he beats Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania and has 2 titles. He has both of the championships, which just takes him to another level. Then the Usos unify the tag team titles, and they're dominating, and the Bloodline is just on top. But there were definitely more layers to this. You're talking about August as the cutoff, so we didn't have Clash at the Castle yet, so we can't include the addition that came with Clash at the Castle. So we'll be talking about that here in just a little bit. It was a good year for the Bloodline, but I would agree that it was towards the bottom.
Good. Well said, Aaron. Like I said, not bad, but I agree with the matches, and thank you for actually bringing up a point I forgot to say, that towards the end it did feel like the Bloodline needed something to freshen it up, and that's where a certain someone started to peek into the storyline, but we'll get definitely a lot more about that coming in. So that being said, we're gonna move on to our rank number 3, year 4, August 2023 of August 2024. And for those wondering why we've got the August to August is because Roman Reigns made his comeback at SummerSlam 2020. So that's the reason why we're kind of going from August to each August. So now this is where things I think are going to get very interesting. So with the ranking system, I voted for year number 4 to be at number 3. Aaron, you voted for the following year that we're going to talk about to be at number at this part. But we had to do a social media tiebreaker, and what I found very interesting is that year 4 won won to basically go higher on this list through my social media polls on Facebook. And Facebook, it was a tie, so I gave it a point as well. On Twitter, it did win, but not by a landslide. It was like only just 10% more versus the upcoming year that we're going to be talking about, when that won via Instagram, TikTok, and my YouTube. Man, that thing blew it out of the water. So what that tells me about year number 4 is that there are definitely some polarizing results in terms of how fans are maybe feeling about it. Me personally, I feel that year number 4 has probably the lowest part of the bloodline, and yet for particular final boss reasons, it has the highest point. So how do I balance that out? I'll go more in depth with my thoughts in a moment here, but Aaron, since you felt that year number 4 is rank number 2, I'm going to let you go first on this. So you go ahead and let us know why you feel year 4 should be higher on this list.
All right, I will definitely give you my thoughts on it. Year 4, like you said, a bit polarizing. I think maybe some people are lowering its position because of the last couple of months that Roman Reigns was gone after WrestleMania 40. It did slow down a little bit, the Solo Sikoa version of the Bloodline. We were all waiting for Roman Reigns to make his return, and it did feel like it was dragging on a little bit, but you know, it's all part of the big picture, and you have to look at what's to come with that. But to me, there were 2 reasons why I went a different way than this official ranking. To me, this last year, the Bloodline, I mean, this had The Rock involved, and The Rock, to me, very heavily weighs into it. I mean, you had that press conference in Las Vegas, The Rock getting involved with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns storyline, some of the most compelling television in WWE in years. And that episode of Monday Night Raw where The Rock attacked Cody Rhodes in the parking lot, I mean, I thought that was one of the best Raw segments in a very long time, maybe going back to the Attitude Era. I mean, that was such an awesome segment. The Rock was must-see television. You were absolutely tuning in to see The Rock and what he was going to say and where this was going to go next. And then, of course, it was a beginning of a downswing for the Bloodline. I mean, it was already starting to go downhill in 2023, but 2024, Roman Reigns obviously loses the title. So maybe some people ranked this a little bit lower because it contained moments where the Bloodline were in a losing position as opposed to a winning position. But still, a lot of compelling television, especially in the early part of 2024. And the end of the year, I could also see maybe bringing it down a little bit. I felt like Jimmy Uso turning against Jey, that whole fallout, that took a little bit of time to develop because Jey went over to Monday Night Raw and was doing the stuff over there for a while, and then they finally had the match at WrestleMania. And some fans were not happy with that WrestleMania match. They were disappointed with that one. Although I liked the match more than some of the critics did. But you had some great segments and a lot of memorable moments with Roman Reigns. You kind of had a filler match at the Royal Rumble, throwing in LA Knight and AJ Styles and all those guys in there. It was just to kill time until WrestleMania. So it's like by that point, and even before that, Roman Reigns is not losing the title until WrestleMania. So to me, that kind of took away from some of his title defenses. You knew, okay, Roman's retaining. Let's just get to WrestleMania. So I can see people knocking that, but to me, The Rock was really the difference maker. And the other thing too, as much as I liked the first year of the Bloodline, it was also without fans, and to me that hurt it a little bit. Definitely looking back on it, the Thunderdome, it was very important because I feel like it made WWE watchable during the pandemic. Roman Reigns turning heel, and the intrigue in that, the stuff they had to come up with because there were no fans, that was compelling. And to me, that's what made WWE watchable during that time. And there was really not a whole lot. It was rough for me, maybe for others too, to really get invested in some of those pandemic shows with no fans. Eventually, I kind of got used to it, but I was still waiting for the fans to come back and get involved and be part of the show again. I remember some great segments with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, the whole start of that, where Jey Uso went from being just, what was he, a host of a segment with like 10 other people. I forgot what it was exactly, but you know what I'm talking about. It was during one of those performance center shows where, he's doing absolutely nothing. And then next thing you know, I think it was a battle royal. Correct me if I'm wrong. He won a match to get the championship opportunity at Roman Reigns. And that's when it really started to reach a next level. And I remember Roman Reigns just yelling at Jey Uso. He beat him up, and then he's just holding the title in his face. And I thought it was such a great segment. And to me, that was really one of the most compelling things that WWE had done in many years. After Roman Reigns was John Cena 2.0, all of a sudden he had developed his own identity. And for the first time, you were like, man, this guy's a badass. Before it's suffering succotash and tater tots. And you just
forgot about that one.
I know it's just something as an adult male, you really cannot get behind. But when you got Roman Reigns there saying, I'm the head of the table, he's the alpha male, all of a sudden, this guy's pretty cool. So I definitely can see the argument for the first year being higher than the most recent year. But, I consider the fans, and I consider The Rock's involvement, and I can definitely understand them being close. Like, to me, it's neck and neck between these 2 years. And like I said, no bad year of the Bloodline. I think they're both great, but I think I would still go with the year that includes The Rock just because of the fans being involved. But if the first year had Roman Reigns, who knows if it would have been as successful as it was. Part of it was the fact that they had to rely more on dialogue in the ring because you didn't have the fans in attendance. Like, you think of the Hell in a Cell match with Roman Reigns and Jey, all the talking back and forth, and you had Jimmy out there. That stuff might not have played over as well with fans in attendance. And because they were able to do that and it worked, they realized, okay, we can do more of this later down the line with the guys in the ring, and they can talk and do all that stuff. But I felt like the fact that they were able to do this in the pandemic actually helped WWE as far as moving the stories along and being able to tell the stories in different ways. I'm torn between them. I'm sticking to what I went with, but I could see the argument either way.
Well, very well said. Yeah, I figured that would probably be what it would come down to for me as well. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Let me figure. I forgot to put my background music on here. Let me put it down to 6. There
Careful about the YouTube copyright, people.
Oh yeah, I'm using copyright free music. Basically, yeah. Would have loved to use some Roman Reigns theme music, but obviously, right, yeah. But yeah. I was gonna say though, just to go on everything what you're saying, absolutely. When I said the lowest part for year 4, for me, the thing that it comes down to is we were there at SummerSlam 2023 as well. That whole period where Jey Uso he left the Bloodline and he went on to do his thing. Like, I think the stuff that they did with Jey Uso throughout the fall and the momentum he gained and the whole music, it's just me, Uso, and doing the whole eating and everything, that was great stuff. But that whole fall 2024 or 2023 period, man, I kind of felt it was the lowest point in terms of being compelling TV for the Bloodline, because you had Jimmy Uso, who also had a really great theme song talking about how he's a king, born a king, and he's putting his family in the past, and he does the exact opposite of everything that his lyrics say, and he's trying to get back in the Bloodline, and they kind of turned him into a little bit of a comedy character, which was entertaining. I thought Jimmy Uso's responses, like, I think there's one time where Roman says, "When I'm gone," he says, "I need the new tribal chief to step forward," and Jimmy Uso's like, and he's like, "Solo," and Jimmy's like, man,
Yeah.
like, that was, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me add something. Definitely, Jimmy was kind of booked poorly, and we'll see what happens when he comes back. I also wanted to mention Solo Sikoa. They did a great angle with him at Crown Jewel, beating John Cena. I mean, that was huge. But look at the follow-up to it. Like, they had him. How many matches did he lose after that? Like, why did they book it that way? Especially if they had this all planned out. Like, okay, eventually Solo is going to be trying to take over. Like, they did such a good job protecting Solo, like, the first year and up to when he beat John Cena. But after that, he just went on a losing streak. And I guess house shows don't count or whatever. But I mean, they should have protected him at the house shows too. Like, Solo should not have been losing at all after beating John Cena. So I would say that's a negative. If I had to come up with a negative for the Bloodline, I would say Solo going on that losing streak after beating John Cena.
Absolutely, yeah. That's another point in the fall, and that should be treated. That should be protected. When you beat John Cena, that should mean something. Not by having him lose. And I think they did almost the same thing with Austin Theory and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, how do you have Cena lose and you don't follow up with it? Right. That part, yeah. And getting what you were saying, Aaron, that's my thing about it. Jey Uso had such a fantastic fall, really building him up as to be a top baby face. And I felt like this is good. I'm like, especially if Roman's going to be gone, we can tell there's a compelling story to tell of maybe a power struggle between Solo and Jimmy Uso, and maybe we'll get to Jimmy Uso becoming a more like a dominant heel, just getting that more serious push, because I thought that was what they were doing. They separate these two so that when they get to the big match at WrestleMania, Jimmy and Jay both would go ahead and have this you got the top baby face here and a top heel here, but instead it just felt really low. And I think that's one of my biggest things going in that WrestleMania 40 match is Jay and Jimmy Uso. I think they took way too long to really get going. Like, it felt like only just a few weeks before WrestleMania 40 that now Jimmy Uso and Jay are finally starting to interact. Before a couple of months, I think he had cost him the tag titles a couple of times, but yeah. And in the match itself at WrestleMania 40 with Jay and Jimmy, I liked it from a story standpoint, so I still stand with that as I put it in my ranking and my review. I like the story aspect of it, but would have loved to see some more variety outside of just spamming super kicks back and forth. I know their time got cut and everything, but I wouldn't mind if maybe in year 5 we get one more Jimmy and Jay match with like a stipulation of no holds barred or something, and just let those guys get the time they need to go out there, and then that's where they bury the hatchet. So that we'll see what that happens in year 5. But yeah, man, fantastic year for Jey Uso. This really showed that he can be on his own. Jimmy Uso, like I said, I wish they would have done more. And then Paul Heyman, man, I don't know about you. Did you enjoy every week Paul Heyman take his phone, call Roman Reigns? And that's literally, they had him doing week in and week out, month after month after month. And I love Paul Heyman. His delivery is great as always, but I'm like, there's got to be something here. And like you said, Aaron, maybe they already knew The Rock was coming in and what direction it were coming. But it felt a lot like through that fall period that they were kind of almost just dragging their feet until they get to The Rock. And as fans, you don't never want to feel like that, because as we'll see when we get to another particular year at our number 1 spot, when Roman wasn't around, boy, did they sure find ways to make the story still compelling. So that's to me was one thing that had to drag number 4 down a lot. But then we get to January and The Rock shows up, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that went on as we seen from that point to WrestleMania. But I dare say January to WrestleMania and the whole build up and everything they did with The Rock and Cody and Seth and Roman, was the absolute best part of the Bloodline. If we were to break it up not by year and by arcs, and I just take that WrestleMania 40 arc, I might put that right there at the top of the list, because The Rock coming back and you know, them pivoting it and going to the what was it, the new heel persona. We got to see The Rock basically go back to some of his old classics with and bring back the music from 2003, dressing like 1999 corporate rock, and he's the final boss. Fantastic stuff. Loved every bit of it. It was so compelling. Like, who could ever forget when The Rock basically goes like, "If you smell," and then we get that shot of Roman Reigns with his arm, and then they have the camera pan up, and Rock's like, "What the?" And Roman's like, "Before you do your catchphrase, I need to make sure you do something for me. I need you to acknowledge me." And the crowd's like, "Oh," I'm like, that was compelling. And The Rock says, "I acknowledge you, my cousin Roman Reigns," and the fans booed. And just us wondering, like, little things like, when The Rock does this, could that mean something? And then he would go back and do that. Like, that was great stuff, man. Cody Rhodes and The Rock, the beatdown he did at WrestleMania. I mean, a couple of Raws before WrestleMania in Chicago, great stuff. And then Roman, when Rock would take the belt out and whoop him and stuff, and how they factor Seth Rollins into it, that was great stuff. And I dare say, once again, to me, they put on arguably one of, if not the greatest, maybe one of the greatest main events in WrestleMania history. That Bloodline Rules 2, and how they factored what was it, the night before, from you know, Rock and Roman winning and beating Cody and Seth, which was a fantastic main event, into that next one. And just the blow off. I mean, if that would have been the end of the Bloodline story, that was a perfect storybook ending. But obviously they had more. That was great. And then basically, yeah, just to go through some of the matches here. Like you said, the Roman Reigns LA Knight. It's cool to see they put LA Knight in the main event, but I felt like it was too soon. You knew Roman wasn't losing that title at all, so I'm like, I wouldn't put LA Knight anywhere near him. So they did that. And then of course we got Jimmy and Jay in the Royal Rumble, which kind of touched on that one already. The Fatal 4-Way Roman Reigns. At this point, I think Roman Reigns' title reign, it kind of reached its peak of everything you could do with it. Yeah. You know, so I see that there. And then, like I said, those WrestleMania 40 main events were good. So then it's what we do after we get to WrestleMania 40. That's when the story really starts to pick up again, because Jimmy Uso is excommunicated by Solo, and we get the debut of Tama Tonga, thus making, you know, because Solo's the new role of the new tribal chief, and Paul Heyman is terrified. I was so hyped for the story, because we knew Roman wasn't probably coming back until SummerSlam, but I'm like, this is what they needed, because Solo Sikoa, you know, putting aside them having him lose so much, Solo Sikoa at that point definitely needed, I felt like, let him talk more, let him, you know, get into a bigger role. And I'm glad that they finally took that direction. That Backlash France match was hot, because the audience was really hot for it. The Bloodline with Solo Sikoa and Tama against KO and Randy Orton, and then at the end we got Camacho returning under his New Japan Pro Wrestling name, Tama Loa, and man, we thought it was going to be Jacob Fatu, so we was like, okay, how many new Bloodline members are they doing? So we got the Sons of Haku, aka Gorillas of Destiny, now part of the Bloodline. And oh man, who could ever forget the debut of Jacob Fatu on the June 21st edition 2024 SmackDown? Because Jacob Fatu, I heard a lot about this guy from other content creators and podcasters, and I checked out some of his stuff in MLW, and just seeing his presence when he talks, I'm like, man, like, he's got like his catchphrase, he's like, "Oh, dog walk you." I'm like, oh dang, this guy's got it. He came in like a beast. And then the following week they had him, you know, they had the whole amazing segment. Paul Heyman, who was fantastic in this segment, you know, he gets that moment where Solo goes like, "Okay, I need you to acknowledge me, Paul." And he goes like, "Solo, I love you, and I acknowledge that you are not my tribal chief." And huge ovation pop, like stone cold attitude era level of pop. And Paul knew what was coming, and boom, Solo and all three of them, you know, all three of them beat up Paul Heyman and give him a power bomb through the table, showing Paul, even at you know, at his age, not being an active competitor, still, you know, willing to get this storyline over. That was compelling, and they really started heating things up in the summer. They had Cody Rhodes get defeated by Solo in that 6-man tag match at Money in the Bank 2024. So it really felt like, okay, this Bloodline's on the rise. Just only it would have felt a little bit stronger had they been ranking up win after win with Solo.
Right.
And of course, this leads to SummerSlam 2024 recently, which, like I said, I felt Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa's chemistry wasn't as good as Roman Reigns. But when Roman Reigns came out to his WrestleMania 41 theme and that place erupted, and like I said, he comes in, Superman punch, spear, and you could feel the ooh, ah, to the soul. It's like, man, look where we were at SummerSlam 2020, Roman coming back as a heel, and now it comes full circle around as a babyface. Man, and the stuff they did in a couple of weeks, like Roman Reigns beating up Solo and Tama Tonga and Tama Loa all by himself, man, that was fantastic. That took me back almost like the Attitude Era when Stone Cold would come out and start whooping the Ministry and everything.
Yeah.
And then most recently, we end year number 4, where it's the same thing. Roman basically just going ham on all on Solo and Tama. And man, what I really think it needs to be very appreciated about Roman Reigns' storytelling is he knows how to take his time and make the fans wait. He picks up the Ulafala and he's slowly putting it on. And once he puts it right over his neck, man, the audience erupts. And then Jacob Fatu comes in, whoops Roman Reigns with a few moves, and that's it. And I still laugh at it. At the end, Solo and Tama come up there and start standing up like they did something. What did you guys do in the storyline other than get whooped by one man for 2 weeks straight? If I'm Jacob Fatu in the storyline, I'm taking the Ulafala. I'm putting it on. I'm saying you acknowledge me. And I'm like, yeah, you did in one move what you acknowledged. It's like not to get too much on a tangent. They had the Judgment Day where Liv Morgan beat up Rhea Ripley all by herself, and then her other 4 male companions all had to gang up on Damian Priest. And I'm like, Liv Morgan looks more impressive. She took out one woman by herself, where it took 4 dudes to take out Damian Priest. So it kind of goes into the same thing here with all that. So I thought, man, year 4, it had its ups and downs. Some of those downs I had to put it at number 3, but man, just looking at it, there was a lot of good stuff, and I'm glad that they moved things along for it. So I think it does set up things nicely for year 5 to be possibly the biggest of the year from there. So, before we move on to the next one, what you want to say, Aaron?
I just wanted to say that Roman Reigns turning face, definitely a major positive for the overall history of the Bloodline. That's a very significant moment. That has to be weighed in too. Great return at SummerSlam. And like you said, it's all setting up year 5. Year 5 could potentially be the biggest year of the Bloodline ever, with Roman Reigns now as a full-fledged babyface. The Rock coming back. What's going to happen with that? Usos possibly getting back together, the original Bloodline, like what are they going to do at War Games? There's a lot to look forward to, and we may have to revisit this list down the line, seeing what happens next. Sure. According to Paul Heyman, we may still only be in like the 3rd inning of this whole thing. It's crazy.
I can say it. Like I say, it was a fun year with some high greats and lows. I just wish that they would have, as far as just getting from place to place, I just wish they would have made it more compelling. That's it. But when we get to 2024 onward, like, yeah, man, that stuff was good.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. And so we move on to rank number 2. From August 2020 to August 2021, which was year 1 of the Bloodline. So this is the year basically that I ended up picking for number 2. Aaron, of course, picked year 4. But when I get to the social media polls here via Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, it was a landslide victory. There was far more people that loved year 1 over year 4, which like I said, I thought was telling, because even on X, where year 4 won, it only edged out by a little bit. So people definitely loved year 1. I'm going to actually go ahead and give it over to you, Aaron, to give us your thoughts. I know you already touched a little bit on it about year 1, but this is your chance to go ahead and expound upon it.
I mentioned Roman Reigns feuding with Jey Uso. That was definitely a hot storyline that really got the Bloodline going and got it on a high note, got people invested in what was going on. And as you went into the early part of 2021, you had the storyline with Kevin Owens, which was very good. I thought that was an entertaining storyline with Owens challenging Roman Reigns. WrestleMania was a big moment. Roman Reigns going against Daniel Bryan and Edge. Triple threat match, and Roman Reigns stacking them like that. That is an all-time great visual as far as I'm concerned. Pitting both guys at the same time, really establishing Roman Reigns as the guy in WWE. The Usos continue to build up momentum, and Roman Reigns was still, I guess the big positive besides everything I mentioned was the fact that at this time Roman Reigns was still a full timer. That was nice to actually have him on the shows every week.
Yes.
And it hurt a little bit when he would leave, and they would have him come back, and it's a running joke on the internet that there's like 20 graphics for Roman Reigns returning because it happened so many times. So I will say, if anything,
you know what, Aaron, right quick, I noticed you didn't make the you didn't do the collage of the graphics when they did Roman turns to SmackDown. I guess you could say it felt like it means something when he actually is gone for 4 months, right?
Right. Yeah. And then,
hey, every other week.
Right. Exactly. I will say this about year one: it was the most consistent because of the fact that Roman Reigns was a regular. He was there pretty much every week. And we did conclude this with the return of the fans, so you can include SummerSlam and Money in the Bank for that matter, and John Cena coming back, and that was great to have Cena versus Reigns with the roles reversed. Although Cena was always a babyface, but now you had Roman Reigns as the clear heel, and John Cena is the clear intended babyface and the intended heel. So yeah, SummerSlam was entertaining for that. And then of course Brock returns, so you can include his actual return at that point. But yeah, just the establishment of the bloodline and getting it going, was very instrumental in, I think, people sticking with WWE during the pandemic. Very important for the company. So yeah, it definitely had its big moments for sure.
Nice, very well said, Aaron. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on there. Just what a fantastic time, because year number one, and I feel like a lot of the stuff with the Bloodline still holds up well. When I go back and watch some of that stuff, and it's probably some of the only stuff I go back and watch every now and then, is that even though there's no audience, the storytelling is so good, so compelling, the performances are so good. I don't even pay attention to the fact that it's just a bunch of digital LED boards where everybody had to use their web cameras because we couldn't be in person at the time. I don't get lost in the fact that, hey, these are manufactured noises that they're using, because I'm so invested into the story. And I'm glad to see that when the audience did come back, that translated very well. For me, year one, I put it at number 2. Because I just think it's too iconic. Not to get any spoilers or much Dragon Ball talk, I got a big Dragon Ball podcast in the works, and our number 1 spot, even though it's not as flashy as some of the other topics we're going to talk about, that we just came to the decision that number 1 was too iconic, and that's exactly how I feel about the Bloodline storyline. Year 1 is that it's too iconic. It's set into motion to what WWE would become. This was the way that this year showed that WWE can tell more compelling storylines that have a lot more, take a lot of things that people can more relate to in real life and put it in with just how they talked a lot about families and everything together. Like, man, like it launched off to that, because ever since this Bloodline started, man, WWE has just been getting better and better and better as the years have gone by. And look at the type of storylines we got now, and it goes beyond the Bloodline. Like I mentioned, the Judgment Day was really good storytelling. Just, you have so many different elements now that really was paved the way because of what year 1 Bloodline did. Looking at some of the matches ago here, obviously, yeah, Roman coming back it was awesome when we didn't even know, like the fact that we didn't know if he was a heel or just being a more aggressive babyface, and the fact that they wanted us to wait until the very end when we get to the what was it, the Payback pay-per-view, and Roman goes like he said, "That's not a prediction." And then they zoom into Paul Heyman. He goes like, "That," no, he goes like, "That's not a prediction, that's a spoiler." And they zoom into Paul Heyman, and he goes like, "You can believe that?" And we was like, "Oh, it's official. He's definitely a heel." I love the way that they did that. The fact that he just didn't come out like, "I'm hater now, I'm a bad guy." Like, no, they subtly build it up. That was great. Now, those Jey Uso matches, this shows you the power of the Bloodline, because beforehand, and I think you mentioned this earlier, Jey Uso, everybody thought of him as a tag team guy. He wasn't doing even thing much for the 2020s while Jimmy was out injured, and we're like, okay, what is this gonna do? And they put Jey Uso in the match, and holy crap, Jey Uso delivered big time in a main event. He told one of the most compelling, along with Roman Reigns, they told one of the most compelling story-driven, and I will say, between Jey Uso and even going Sami Zayn, which we'll talk about in a moment here, this Bloodline storyline has really opened my eyes as a fan to not put ceilings on people, because you never know. I wouldn't have imagined Jey Uso was going to make it to this point, but he did. Sami Zayn, when he was getting to being that comedy character, I didn't imagine he'd get to this point, but he did, and that's because of this storyline. And so this storyline really serves that, hey, it just takes that one good story and presenting somebody more seriously, and look what happens. But those Jey Uso matches, they still hold up to this day. And we were there in person for the third match, and I still didn't think the third match could top what these two matches did. The story, Jimmy Uso coming out and everything, like, what's going on with you? You know, we were family, we can do this together, you know, and the tears they had going, Hell in a Cell, they had the I Quit match, and Roman crying, it's like, I don't know who I've become. And then he's like, come on, man, we can do this together. He said, let's just go back to the way it was. And they do the blood oath, and Roman's like, I got you. And then puts him over into the guillotine and makes Jimmy Uso tap out, and the way Roman got up just all cool and everything, just using the way he used his cousins, like, that was fantastic. We mentioned at the beginning of the stream, this is the last time we would see Alpha and Sika just using what they created, like they are the elders of the bloodline, and they anoint Roman Reigns with the Ulafala to say he is the official tribal chief. Fantastic storytelling, ways to really bring back, show what those guys did as the Wild Samoans and their contributions, and what it meant to begin the epicness of this storyline. Man, and we had Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, and I thought that was an absolute excellent match with Roman, and of course they had Jey Uso doing a lot of interference. That was fun. Then they rekindled the Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns feud. So Kevin Owens is the babyface now, Roman Reigns is the heel, and them man killed it. They killed it in the TLC match, and then 5 days later they had a steel cage match, and I was looking at that when Kevin Owens was handcuffed. He almost had Roman beat, and Roman Reigns it was Kevin Owens. He was handcuffed by Jey Uso to the steel cage, and Roman, he kind of woke up like, oh, I got the match won, and he slowly walks out step by step, and he turns over the rope to Kevin Owens. He's smiling, and Kevin Owens just cussing him out and everything, and Roman just goes one foot, other foot, and I retain the Universal Championship. That was just great stuff, man. Like, it was just so fresh to see how far Roman Reigns had come now that they're letting him be himself. And this is what I was saying for years, whether it's a babyface or heel turn, I'm like, just let Roman Reigns be himself. Like you said earlier, don't make him John Cena 2.0, and that's what they did. And now it's like, Roman felt like he was being himself, and it just felt so new and fresh. And then we got to the last man standing match with Kevin Owens, which was their second match at Royal Rumble. That was also a fantastic match. The ending was a little messed up. If you remember, they couldn't get the handcuffs off of Roman, and the referee's like 7, 8, 9, and then he just looks. Nothing to see here. They wait another 30 seconds. Roman is finally like, oh, I'm sorry, KO, I'm sorry. Roman got to his feet. Like, that was an unfortunate part and funny part of the match. Like, it's crazy how if they would have just called that as a shoot, man, that changes the whole trajectory of this entire story before it even gets going. Man, so that was interesting. Daniel Bryan fought Roman Reigns in another really great match during this time. And like you said, that triple threat match of night 2, I thought that was the match that stole the show of night 2 of WrestleMania 37, stacking them and pinning them. I always wonder what would that be like in a triple threat match to show someone's dominance. Like, he just pins both of them. That was great stuff. We even got Cesaro helping elevate him in the match in terms of at least showing what he can do in the main event, but they didn't elevate him beyond for a push at that. And we, of course, got Daniel Bryan's last match with Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. Just going down the list, my gosh, Roman Reigns at one point was defending his title almost every couple of weeks at this point. Like, and I think that's what I loved about it so much, is that I said that's the difference between Brock Lesnar, who was gone for months and came back. Roman is up here defending sometimes twice a month and everything. So that was really good to see. They had the Rey Mysterio Hell in a Cell match on SmackDown. They did that thing where he powered bombed Dominic Mysterio. Off the ropes. Man, it's crazy to go back and look at Dominic Mysterio during this early part of his career to just where he's come in a couple of years. Like, man, they were firing on cylinders. It was just fun. And then we did get the audience back for Money in the Bank, him and Edge. It was at this point that the Usos Yeah, they beat the Mysterios with the championships, and then Roman, he beat Edge, and then you get John Cena coming back, and so now it's John Cena versus Roman Reigns. And I was so hyped for this because we all remember when Roman Reigns, was forgetting his lines, and John Cena said, "It's called a promo, kid. You got to learn how to do it if you want to be the big dog." And we're like, oh man, I want to see how well is Roman Reigns going to fare when John Cena comes out. And Roman Reigns did not disappoint. So much cooler, so much smoother on the mic. He has the great line. Everybody's wanting him. He grabs the microphone and he goes like, "So John Cena came out here doing the same thing over and over. It's like missionary position." And the whole crowd erupts in a cheer. He says, "Well, the tribal chief don't get down like that." And man, he won the audience over and they gave him a standing ovation. And I thought, honestly, he smoked Cena. I thought that whole time because Cena was doing the same old, and Roman was like, "You up here doing the same old all over every week. The same thing you've been doing the last 20 years." Like, man, but when you got to the match, Roman Reigns, it was more or less their first match. John Cena doing a lot of selling for majority of it, and then he makes the comeback towards the end and Roman beats him. But what was so cool was just see Roman's development, because in this one, Roman, he had mastered the trash talk, just trash talking, tell him like, "We're gonna get you back to Hollywood" and stuff. And when he would grab somebody to face and put him in the camera, "You understand, this is my ring now," and everything. Like, man, it was fantastic. And of course it ends with Brock Lesnar coming out, and we're like, holy crap. And this was at a big time because AEW got a lot of buzz. CM Punk, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, and then they're like, okay, we're bringing in Brock Lesnar, and it's like Roman and Brock face to face. But this time we know whose side is Paul Heyman going to be on. Man, just looking at it, I love this year, man. It is too iconic. Like, it changed the trajectory of WWE. And as years go by and WWE keeps on this hot streak of storytelling, year one, man, just fantastic. And the fact that it happened with most of the crowd gone, with all the audience gone, and I still remember all this good stuff, man, it was just fantastic year. So that's definitely. We're going to move on to our final ranking. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Aaron?
I think we summed it up pretty nicely. Definitely the most consistent. I feel like year 4 had more ups and downs, but year 1, it remained pretty strong from start to finish.
Right, and that's why I had to put it. But now, man, shoot, we can just fanboy mark out or whatever, because we get to what I have to say is the holy grail of the Bloodline story. Coming in at number 1, it's year 3, August 2022 to August 2023. Whoa. Yeah. What a year. You want to talk about storytelling, and both Aaron and I both chose this as our number 1. Yeah, easily. You want to talk about storytelling from top to bottom. And honestly, if I had to really narrow it down to one name, Sami effing Zayn.
Bingo.
Who would have thought Sami Zayn would add so much life to the Bloodline and make these performances? He made everything. Just to go through here. So we had the Roman Reigns Clash at the Castle with him and Drew McIntyre. Another fantastic, compelling match. Had me on the edge of my seat, but of course Roman Reigns wins. Now at the time, I was disappointed with that, because I'm like, oh man, if Roman's going to be gone, then we might as well put the title on Drew. But thankfully, Roman would be around a lot more than we thought. And this would lead. Oh yeah, let me get into this one. Oh, this promo here.
Yeah, and Cody was gone, so Cody wasn't around. So the WrestleMania, the picture was not totally clear at that point. And yeah, a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, Drew McIntyre should be winning the title at this point. And Solo debuted there. So that's when you had the new member and things start to pick up.
Yeah, Solo did debut at that one, and he, like I said, they got to a really good start with Solo and everything. Man, that was fantastic. Shout out to in the chat, Calvin Bowman. Yeah, thanks for coming by for the stream. But yeah, getting back to what we had here, man. And stuff like this, we had Solo coming in, and it felt good because we needed some new bloodline. There was only, I think they kind of peaked with Roman, Jimmy, and Jay, so we got a new member finally. We were asking for the longest time, bringing a new member, and then they had this part where Sami Zayn, he started now because Triple H took over. Sami Zayn started coming more into the bloodline, hanging out with him backstage, and it was some comedy gold stuff, man. I couldn't tell you how many times I laughed when he would come on and, he see Jimmy and Jay, what up, dog, and stuff like that, and he'd be be like, yes, what is up, my dog? And he'd be like, you good, dog? And they'd be like, yes, I am very good, because we're dogs. That's what we do. We're dogs.
And he's just breaking those guys like nobody can keep a straight face.
Exactly. He even broke Solo at one point. I think they were on the bump. And Solo, he was good at being very stoic and everything.
Yeah, he was.
Like, hey, yep. And Solo was like, hey, are you good, my dog? Are you good? He's like, yes, I'm good, dog. I'm good. He said, did you get your lunch? Did I pack for you? And he's like, yes, Sammy, I got my lunch. All right, I just want to make sure. You know how Roman gets when you don't get your lunch.
He has to put his hand in front of his face, turn away a little bit.
It was so compelling, so good. Oh man, dude. At this point, they had Logan Paul and Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns ad-libbed one of his best promos in front of the camera, where he gets mad about Logan Paul trying to take him on, and he's like, there ain't a man alive who can touch my button. If I had one, you wouldn't even be able to locate it. Can't no man knock me out. I'm tired of being humble. I'm tired of letting people think they got a chance. The tribal chief is head and shoulders above everybody. This is my show. This is my camera. I run it all. I'm like, oh my gosh, how good is Roman Reigns? I think it was even that following year where he confronted Austin Theory, and Austin Theory basically, because we knew he was Vince McMahon's chosen one at the time, and Roman grabs the microphones and goes like, Daddy ain't here anymore, and the audience was like, oh, and then they started chanting, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? So Roman was just, you could tell he was on so much more comfortable level. The man, and this is what we were saying, just let the man be himself and let him develop. And that match with Logan Paul was excellent, because we were still very much early into Logan Paul's run, and the fact that he went in there with Roman Reigns, one of the best in the ring, in the storytelling and stuff aspect, and he held his own. Fantastic stuff that we got from year number 3. Year number 3 also saw this amazing thing for the Usos. So the Usos defeated the New Day to retain the undisputed WWE Universal Tag Team Championships, thus going on to break the New Day's record on November 14th to become the longest reigning main roster Tag Team Champions. Then on November 28th of 2022, they broke, I think it's Gallus' 497-day record with the NXT UK Tag Team Champions, making the Usos become the longest reigning Tag Team Champions in WWE history of any kind, regardless of brand or gender. You know, I know I really highly rated them in my WrestleMania 39 ranking, and obviously, there's going to definitely be a lot more tag teams out there from the 80s and 90s, but I think the Usos have earned the right to be called one of the all-time greatest tag teams in WWE with stuff like that, because that was fantastic. It was good to see them being undisputed champion, with Roman as the undisputed champion, and the Usos were still putting on great tag team matches with the New Day, the Street Profits, RK Bro, and all of them. And we get to the Survivor Series 2002. Before Survivor Series, once again, another great segment. How awesome was that segment when Roman was basically getting all in Sammy's face, and it looked like it wasn't going. Everybody was liking Sammy's antics, but Jey Uso, he was mad, and that's what I love. I love that he's like, Sammy, you're cool, and Solo was just like, I'm whatever, and Paul's up there laughing and couldn't believe his antics. Roman's up here laughing, but not Jay. And then Sammy, was it the part where they said, now come on, I think he got the Honorary Uce shirt. No, before that, Paul, I think they say, you're welcome into the group, and Jey Uso like, he up here trying to come in between my family and stuff. And they said, but the tribal chief said, I don't give a damn what the tribal chief said. And all the audience like, oh, I'm like, oh, and Roman had that look like, what? And Roman's getting in Jey Uso's face, and Sammy gets in between his peacemaker. He said, come on now, he's not feeling very Ucey right now. And you see Jay's expression go,
right?
And then Roman starts laughing, and that poor Jay, he was dying to get out of there. His face was red, like he's sitting there holding like what does he hold his mouth for? He's like, and he's like, he's not just feeling very Uso at all. And man, Jay, he just so badly, he's trying to play the heel, but in the angry heel, but he's like, man, he's just trying to hold it in. And they eventually give the Honorary Uce, I think, after Survivor Series to him, and just Sammy coming out there dancing to the Bloodline music was good stuff, and showing like, I'm the Honorary Uce. Man, just fun stuff that they were doing with that. And things got serious at Survivor Series when Roman wanted to know, okay, are you on our side or no? And he hands the victory of Kevin Owens over to Jey Uso, and that's where Jey Uso picked him up and hugged him, and the Bloodline was united, and they were a group of 5, and man, it was fun. It almost felt like, okay, I didn't want this moment to end. I was having so much fun, but we knew with Cody coming back, they're gonna get there, and we get to Royal Rumble, where fantastic storytelling. Obviously not the best among Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens matches, but we didn't know which way it was gonna go, and I didn't know. I was shocked when Sami Zayn took the chair and hit Roman Reigns in the back, and I was like, oh, so they're gonna have Sami turn on him. And then when you think you've got it figured out, they change another part of the story where Jey, now he kind of wants out of the Bloodline because he doesn't think it was right, and he was the one that was against him the most. And like, man, what a compelling story going into WrestleMania 39, and this eventually leads to Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns going at it one-on-one, which I kind of thought they kind of rushed into, because like next week Sami's like, all right, I want that championship match, because it was so close to the Rumble. Just like I thought Jey Uso, I forgot to mention this in year 1, by the way, Jey Uso, I thought he turned to Roman Reigns' side too quickly, because at the beginning of the show he's like, I hate you, why you do this to me? And at the end he's like, I understand, Uso, I understand, you the tribal chief, you. And I'm like, okay. At least when Jimmy Uso came back, he was like, yo, you ain't gonna be talking down to me like you do my brother and stuff. And I'm like, and they actually slowly build up to Jimmy finally coming on Roman's side. So I should say that, but once again, the performance is still great, that I can still look past that. WrestleMania 39, incredible match with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Like I said, if I knew I knew they had to get Roman to 1,000 days, but they didn't even build up any suspense by it, and I think that was a really lost opportunity. Just like that when they had the opportunity to do Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns, or the Bloodline versus Hurt Business when they were the most dominant, that was another lost opportunity. And it was like, man, so I wasn't a fan of Roman's title reign that year, but the storytelling was still good, because Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, not only did they beat the Usos in the main event of WrestleMania Night 1, Sami Zayn actually, even though he wasn't in the story anymore, what he said was still coming to fruition, is that the Usos and you all are going to have a rift between you two. And of course they had where the Bloodline lost to Owens and Sami Zayn, and that led to Jimmy and Jey Uso basically finally telling Roman Reigns, we had enough of your mess, kicking him out. And that story was so compelling, because there's people out there that have abusive family members and stuff like that, and I'm like, man, I love the realistic approach they're taking to this. It was so amazing to watch that Civil War going into
Crown Jewel.
They had that silver,
not Crown Jewel. What was it? Super show, one of those.
Yeah, it was one of the Saudi Arabia shows, I think. No, it was Money in the Bank, actually. Yeah, it was Money in the Bank. They did the Civil War, Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa versus the Usos. Match kind of started off slow, which I don't mind, but I just thought it was way too one-sided at the beginning. But then it really picked up in the second half, and it was the shocker of Jey Uso getting the pinfall win, 1-2-3 over Roman Reigns. Like, oh, so this story, even though the title's not being involved, this story's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we get to SummerSlam, because obviously, Aaron, both you and I had to make sure that we at least witness one because that was the reason I mostly went, because I'm like, I want to make sure I witness Roman Reigns reign, at least one pay-per-view match with Roman Reigns and stuff during this era. Was that the same reason you wanted to go to SummerSlam as well?
Well, also it's like 30 minutes away.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, for you, it was in your native woods and stuff. Yeah, Roman Reigns though, and Jey Uso, it was about a 3 hour and a half drive for me from Chicago. But man, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, I was hyped for the match. I didn't think the build-up was as good as the other stuff, but I kind of knew where it was going in terms of, okay, yeah, this is the right direction. Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, playing this story back 3 years after it originally got started for the tribal combat match. Man, went in there expecting a bunch of tribal combat weapons of Samoan culture. I'm like, they're gonna decorate this whole area, make it look like something of Samoan, and I'm like, these guys are gonna go at it, and I'm like, I just hope they don't do what I think they're gonna do for the ending. And instead, unfortunately, we were there in person. We kind of got a very slow-paced match that never really got going. And I was like, the Roman Reigns entrance was incredible to witness in person. I'll say that. And we were a part of the first audience that started doing the yeeting thing with Jey Uso. Yeah. We hadn't had the music yet. So that was cool. And it's like, man, the match kind of just never really kicked into high gear. I don't think it was, like I said, I don't think it was a bad match, but I just didn't think it was the best that the Bloodline stories had offered us. And in the end, they went with Jimmy Uso turning on Jey after everything he had said previously about how families should stick together, and Roman picks up yet another unclean win at that point with Solo interfering, because I think in this match it was like he was just telling Solo to do his dirty work for him. Like, Solo, get him. Solo, put him there. And I'm like, okay, where are we going here? And it's one of those things where, yeah, they did plant the seeds, but it's like, let's see. I'll give Triple H, he's really good with the storytelling. I'll see where they go. And we get to that last SmackDown that ends year number 3 where Jimmy says, I didn't want you to become like him. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, alrighty. And Jey Uso, he ends up, doing the super kick to everybody and goes like, deuces, ooses, and he leaves WWE. And of course, he comes back 2 weeks to win the tag titles with Cody. But yeah, I was like, after that, like I said, we went into what I thought was the lowest point of the Bloodline at fall 2023 period.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, woo! Year number 2023 of the Bloodline, the best. And I think maybe year 5, maybe if they can put that type of storyline added with the star power we're getting back for year 5, man, fantastic stuff. But yeah, this was some of WWE's best storytelling that I think really helped bring the Bloodline as one of the top greatest storylines in all of WWE. This is going to be in the same mentions of Macho Man versus Hulk Hogan, or Macho Man versus Hulk Hogan,
Austin
versus McMahon. Yeah, like it's right up there, one of the greatest of all time.
Yes.
So I am done fanboying out. Aaron, your time for year number 3. Man, what a year for that.
Yeah, you summed it all up really nicely. So I'm not going to add too much to it. Like it reinvigorated Sami Zayn. Like it turned his career around. He went from facing Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania, and you thought, okay, this guy, he's basically a comedy act, and they turned him around and made him credible again. It just, it was a huge resurgence in his career. And it elevated Kevin Owens. And, we talked about this with Virtue on the No DQ review many times. It elevated so many people's careers. Everybody, even if they lost to Roman Reigns, the Bloodline storyline was so strong that everybody, their stock rose from being part of it, whether it was Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn, and even people like LA Knight. They got elevated from being involved with the Bloodline. Jey Uso got massively elevated. As I mentioned earlier, he went from hosting that stupid segment that I don't even remember what it was called on SmackDown, and then he becomes the right-hand man, and now he's one of the most popular guys in the history of WWE. It just did so much for the company, did so much for the wrestlers. A very exciting time. Sami Zayn turning on Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, one of the all-time great endings to a WWE pay-per-view. And Roman shocked the world. He beat Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 39. And as it turns out, it ended up being the right move. They waited one more year. And unfortunately, Roman kind of became a part-timer. But the storyline with the Usos was very compelling. The Saudi Arabia show where Roman and Solo. Was it Roman and Solo challenging Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And they came up short, and then we had the official split, and just the crowd reactions to everything that was happening. Just very memorable. And every wrestler and every participant, whether it was Paul Heyman or Jey Uso or Jimmy, everybody had their own role. And the way everybody was standing in the ring, everybody had their own position, and you got their reactions and all the different interactions. There were so many layers to it. Just brilliant storytelling from start to pretty much the finish. SummerSlam was what it was. I enjoyed being there. One more thing I wanted to add was Madison Square Garden. I wanted to go to a show at Madison Square Garden pretty much my entire life. Like that was one of my bucket list things to do. And in 2023, I finally got to do it. And what a show I got to go to where they basically set up the SummerSlam match. This was coming off of Money in the Bank, and they were officially...
That was SmackDown, right? That was SmackDown?
SmackDown, Madison Square Garden. And it was crazy because I think 40 minutes of the show was just the Bloodline promo. It wasn't even...
I remember that, yeah.
It wasn't even wrestling, but it flew by so quickly when I was there. I was like, holy cow, 40 minutes has already gone by. And sometimes, like when I'm at these shows, I'm like, oh man, this is dragging. But I was just blown away by how fast it went for me. So that was an awesome experience. That was my first time getting to see the Bloodline in person, and then SummerSlam was right after that. So that whole package was very memorable to me. But yeah, clearly number one. Such a great year. But you know what? We mentioned it earlier. I think year 5 has the potential to be the best one yet. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think they still have a lot of life left in the Bloodline storyline.
Absolutely. Well said, Aaron. Yeah, I mean, just shoot. Yeah, you brought some things I had forgot to mention. That was good. Year 5, definitely looking to be excellent. But yeah, like we made it clear at the beginning of the stream, we might like more years more than others, but as a consistent storyline from 1 to 4, this has been some of the best storytelling WWE has ever done. Their longest storyline, and man, they're knocking it out of the park. And yeah, I can't wait to see so many great things with the babyface Usos getting back to Roman Reigns, maybe Sami Zayn joining in, Jacob Fatu, who I think has been the absolute standout right now. I can't wait to see where he's gonna go when The Rock comes back and stuff. And eventually, I think maybe if they choose to end the Bloodline story with Roman Reigns defeating The Rock at WrestleMania, like there's the end of the possibilities are endless. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm gonna switch over to comment section, see if we got something. Yes, Calvin put some things up here. Let's see what we got. Sami Zayn and the Usos should get back together with Roman Reigns to take out the new Bloodline. Agree, and I think that's exactly where they're going with it. Sami Zayn told Roman, I think, yeah, that's what you probably put there beginning. And then he asked if I can do an impression of Owen Hart like Jason Sensation did in July 1998. That was an all-time classic moment, but no, I can't. I can't. But shout out to Owen Hart, one of the all-time greats. Still remember how entertaining he was as a kid, and even all these years later, man, I still remember him. But yeah, the Jason absolutely killed the Owen Hart, and he killed every impression he ever did.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. But hey, we have gone through everything in the ranking. Aaron, I thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy. You got a stream coming up, and as you've always been kind enough to let me go ahead and promote on your streams, this is your floor to go ahead and stream, promote what you have coming up tonight.
Well, just stay tuned. We got AEW All In coming up, and we'll be doing predictions for that, predictions for every show, and just stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the latest news and rumors. It's a pleasure to talk with you, son, and we hope to have you on some more NoDQ reviews. It's always a pleasure to have you on the streams. You're a great fan and a great mind for wrestling, so it's always fun, and we love your passion and energy that you bring to the NoDQ channel, and you're always welcome. So thank you for everything, and very fun to talk about this, and looking forward to more. Like I said, we got to come back at some point and revisit all this down the line.
Absolutely, and pleasure working with you, Aaron, getting me into streaming. And like I said, I recently reached 5,000 subscribers, and I listed you as one of the content creators. Has been an inspiration to see how you've developed and grown your channel, and now, you know, I'm looking at how I am being able to do these streams, which I wasn't doing before, so much proud. Thank you for that so much. That being said, guys, you can see right there our links to our channels are right there. Definitely make sure to check out NoDQ for Aaron Riff, as well as his website NoDQ.com. And for more WWE content, click the link right there on the screen. So for Aaron and for me, you all take care, and make sure to let us know in the comments what your rankings are for all 4 years of the Bloodline.